Welcome to this week's episode of the PaynePoints Podcast. I'm Sarah Harbuck, and with me today is Michael Payne. And this episode is going to cover things like dealing with the uncertainty in your small business, how to overcome being unknown, and the question of do you build or buy? So stay tuned. We'll be discussing these things coming up.
Do I really have to sing this again? The state we're in, I admit it bears repeating. Authorities exist and are overgrowing.
So dealing with uncertainty in small business, that's, I think, something every small business faces, and it's a hurdle that a lot of small business owners have to jump. So when we are discussing the uncertainty of small business or what happens when uncertainties come up in small business, what are we talking about, Mike? What would you describe that? What would you define that as?
I mean, it's a kind of it's in so many different places, honestly. It can be uncertainty simply driven by just having to make complex decisions every day, and where are those decisions going to lead you? Are they going to bring you down the right path? It can be uncertainty at a grander scale. If you listen to a lot of business news, uncertainty in stock markets creates real problems. In the best case, I think uncertainty stalls growth for businesses on the stock market. In the worst case, it actually causes stock markets to drop.
So the stock market
people pull it out.
Will affect a small business, like your
Absolutely.
locally owned small business. The stock market's going to affect that.
It does in respect to the fact that your locally owned small businesses are going to deal with a lot of the same factors that a stock market based company is going to deal with.
Okay.
How consumers feel about their money is as much a concern to a small local business as it is to a national or multinational conglomerate.
So if people feel secure with their money, or the stock market's doing well and so they feel secure in our economy, they're going to spend money.
Right.
Small business, big business, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as somebody can supply. And we see a big trend these days towards really supporting small business. I mean, I don't think 10 years ago, Small Business Saturday, which we just had, was would be seen as such a success as it has been over the last decade. But it's a thing now. It's a thing. It's almost as big as Black Friday.
Yeah, I think people are disenfranchised with corporations and places like Amazon. While it's super convenient, there's this sort of push of you got to support the people in your community than some national conglomerate.
Absolutely, and even at that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not the type of person who sits there and goes, don't buy from big businesses. The only way to really support your local community is to buy local. But that's not true, because not everybody out there has the entrepreneurial spirit to go out there and start their own business. So right. What do the people who don't do that, who don't start their own businesses do? Well, they work for companies.
Yeah, they're
either working for local small businesses or they're working for big companies. Just this weekend, over the Thanksgiving break, Costco, the big warehouse store that we don't have here in the South, right?
It's Sam's if you live in the South.
The Costco's website was having problems, and somebody estimated that they lost about $11 to $13 million in sales because their website wasn't functioning.
Ooh.
And a lot of other people brought up the fact that the loyalty to Costco is such that the inconvenience of not being able to order on the website probably drove a significant portion of people to just go to the store.
Yeah.
And purchase their new iPads or whatever electronic sales were going on. It's that, but that purchase, that loss of 11 million, if that is an accurate number, it still supports that local community. It supports that local community when they went, instead of buying it online, they now went to that store.
The locally owned store.
The local store.
The local.
But that local store pays property taxes to the local governments.
And employs local people.
that is just as important. I'm not saying that Small Business Saturday doesn't have its merit, but I am also trying to keep that pendulum from swinging the exact opposite way and saying any company that is a large company like that, doesn't support local business. That's not true at all. There are specific arguments and gripes. Costco is one of the ones that you cannot make this argument about. Large firms that pay a lot lower wages do have a very negative impact on the local economy.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind, that if you're going to choose to buy from a large corporation that has a history of not really supporting the local community by avoiding property tax obligations, lobbying to make laws, their actions determine whether or not they really support the local community.
Right.
You have to consider those things as a consumer, but I think it's very important to recognize that even some large companies, and these are the ones you should be supporting if you really support local business, they do have an impact, a positive impact, and they getting back to the topic of uncertainty, they deal with that uncertainty. So if your local consumers, right, are uncertain about their intentions, even these big companies, that's a factor.
Yeah.
They have to deal with that. And they deal with that by strategizing their marketing in such a way that tells a different story, that changes the narrative.
Okay.
Local businesses actually have that power to set their narrative through social media. It used to be you needed millions upon millions of dollars, or whatever that converts back to years ago, to be able to effectively run a campaign that would really change the narrative. So these days, it's not really as important to be able to spend that kind of money. Radio and TV advertising is still almost prohibitively expensive in a lot of cases,
especially for small businesses who don't have that kind of budget.
Right, and their target audience, the target audience of those mediums, may not be what a lot of small businesses are going for.
Right.
So social media kind of changes that game. And gives you a whole lot of extra information for a much smaller dollar amount. So you can deal with uncertainty by trying to control a narrative to a degree. There's there's basically 4 different main areas where you can get into dealing with uncertainty from a systematic, strategic standpoint.
Okay.
Okay. The first is from an operational standpoint. Okay. You have to look at what your business does or what you expect it to do day in, day out over periods of times, and try to look at the patterns in the business. Seasonal businesses, they deal with that all the time. Right. Yeah. So how can they deal with the patterns in their business? What can they change in their own patterns to account for these differences? Okay. Okay. So a good example of that would be Standpipe Coffee House locally.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes, well, depending on, at least from my experience. Now, granted, when we first started, the patterns hadn't been established yet, but by and large, typically the shop does more business on days when it's A, colder, and B, the weather it's not sunny. If it's raining, if there's a big event downtown, if they're doing that's coming up tonight, the Christmas parade, mm-hmm. Different things like that. Or, if the weather's nice and it's not that cold, it's going to be a little less busy. Sometimes the weather affects a business like that. You wouldn't think so, but it totally does. And there are other factors involved also, I'm sure you've observed.
Right, exactly. And so one of the things that gets done there is, basically it's really weird with Standpipe because a general nice day, the sun's out, right? But it's not too hot. It's your kind of lukewarm, regular day. They'll actually do less business than most days.
Right, because people are out at the lake or they're doing something that doesn't involve them being hunkered down inside somewhere.
Right. But on days that are extremely hot or much colder,
Yeah.
and like you said, especially if it's really hot with the sun out or it's really cold and it's cloudy and rainy, right? They'll get more business because of the products themselves.
Right.
When it's cold and rainy, people want to drink hot coffee or hot drinks. But because Standpipe also offers a variety of cold drinks, the hot days work too.
Yeah.
So...
and then you have to understand, well, how many employees do I need to have on the floor during those times? Like, it's not just in the weather, which does significantly affect Standpipe's business sometimes, but the time of day can also have a huge impact on the big influx of people coming in or not. Obviously, morning time is going to be super popular, but mid-afternoon, when everybody's kind of like struggling to stay awake and they need a caffeine boost,
right,
you'll see a spike in sales.
And you can take advantage of that from an advertising standpoint.
Right. And so when you're running a small business, it's not just a matter of operations in terms of do you have enough employees to cover those busier peak times, but also in your, more creative or financial side of your business, how do you advertise to maximize on that,
Right.
So.
Yeah. And so like stepping into that creative side, understanding how to promote your business so that it works operationally, when and how to draw customers in. Okay. Basically, a lot of thinking has to go into this. You can't just start a business and expect it to go. There was a...
I don't think that's a thing anymore.
Well, you'd be surprised, right? There was a story I'd heard. Now, this is very third-hand information coming to our listeners right now, but one of the local hotels that's been around for a very, very long time and passed through a few owners had an owner who went to the local Rotary Club, which, for those who don't know, Rotary Club is basically a bunch of business owners getting together, talking business and networking. And they do some civic works projects too. They do civic works and things like that, yes. And so she had gone to the Rotary Club and was having struggles with the hotel and said some things to the Rotary Club that kind of made the folks there feel as though she was placing the blame for her struggles and difficulties on their lack of support in the community. They're the other business lack of support.
That takes a lot of gumption to say that.
It does.
Oh my God.
It does. And there may be valid points to it, but at its core, as a business owner, you have to take ownership. You have to take leadership. And going to other business owners and saying, you're not helping me, is not going to work.
Well, it kind of plays into that sort of victim mentality. It's like, well, I mean, I get that they may not have been as supportive as you would have liked, but at the same time, it's your business.
Correct.
You've got to do the work.
Yeah, and so what happens there is you actually get the exact opposite reaction. Of
no sympathy, you get kind of disdain.
And what ended up happening was that, of course, that particular owner couldn't maintain it, had to sell out, had to sell the business, and the business was sold. And actually, what the other business owners in the community did was they talked to each other. No one really wanted to pick this up. It seemed like a big money pit, but its historical value and significance was high. And so with some other support, another strong business owner in the community actually went in and picked up the business and has been really turning the whole thing around.
Yeah, definitely.
And the community can see it, the overall community, not just the business community. So you have to, dealing with uncertainty in a creative fashion, you really do have to understand your customer demographic. You have to take responsibility. You can't let other people take the blame for you. It's your business. And the other thing that you can do is try to really diversify.
Yeah.
More products and services. Make yourself more appealing to a wider audience.
Yeah.
And that's really a creative piece. But that really kind of goes back to the one place that people have a huge problem, which is financial.
Yeah.
Almost all these small businesses are running on a shoestring.
Right. There's no operating capital. It's just sort of like whatever gets put back into it, or
right.
You know, scraping together 2 pennies.
Whatever you can do to save money, save. Keep a reservoir to be able to have the option to do these things. It's certainly one of the most difficult tasks in all of this, because of course, if you could just pull in more money, you can pull more money. But the importance of reinvesting in your business in some way, shape, or form is paramount to all these things.
And,
really.
and there's always going to be some unexpected expense that pops up within the fiscal year. You're going along and you're planning so well, and you've saved this money, and boom, all of a sudden something, a pipe bursts, and your landlord, while they're probably, because most small businesses probably rent a space, is responsible for that. What if it destroys all of your merchandise? If you're a retail operation that has product, you have to kind of keep that in mind and hope, if you don't have insurance, you've got enough money to cover it.
Exactly. And
which you should have insurance, by the way.
But this also speaks exactly to the last point from an organizational standpoint, planning.
Yes.
We talked last week about pricing structures.
Right.
That's planning.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why the cost-based analysis is really your bottom line, even if you put a markup on top of the thing. Let's just say you're completely successful in a cost-based analysis. You account for every single expense involved. You appropriately distribute the indirect expenses over the amount of product that you expect to sell, and you do actually sell that much.
Right.
And you put a markup on top of all of that, right? It still isn't going to be enough. It's a bottom line.
Yeah.
The real question is the value-based pricing much more than that? Can you actually get people to see a value much higher than that? That's really a very important question to ask when trying to do your pricing. So you have to when you're planning, you have to ask the right questions. And
a lot of small business owners are not. They're not going to be so great at the planning. They may have some short-term planning details that they can accomplish, but and some of the ones I've observed have a harder time looking for further into the future. Planning is not their strong suit. So in that way, you're going to have to probably, either hire people or accumulate friends who you trust to help. A word we like to use a lot is delegate out some of those responsibilities. Yeah,
delegation is such a huge factor, and it's the thing I think that a lot of businesses hesitate to do most.
It's scary giving up control.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have that problem myself.
Yes, you do.
So it is absolutely scary to give up control, but many minds can provide so much more dimension to your business than one. And so I routinely go out to others and seek input from others I trust. And to be honest, I want to hear input from someone I don't trust, because that in and of itself is like, I don't have to take their advice, right? Mm-hmm. They don't need to know every little aspect. But there might be some little golden gem in there that I can take and go, there's something to this, something I wasn't thinking about. Yeah,
a different avenue or a different, just a different perspective that you might not have, ever thought to come at the problem from that way. So, yeah. And I think also, too, you got to ask the right questions. I think whenever you're starting a business, obviously you cannot, you can't foresee everything that's going to happen in the future, for, ever and ever. But when you're starting a business, if you're really serious about it, you're going to sit down, you're going to plan, you're going to try to financially figure things out. You're going to try to ask the right people the right questions. All these things I feel like will help you overcome whatever uncertainty you might face throughout your business operation. Not always, but I think it'll give you a better foothold if you're going to take this seriously and really, try to make a success of your business, doing all these things will, it give you a little bit more of an insured success in the long term, rather than, hey, I had this great idea and I just kind of just threw it together. Now, some people get lucky, and it happens and it's great. But I think if you look at any of the bigger businesses like Facebook even, it is a business. Let's be real. He started out as kind of one guy, two guys, and then, realized I have to have other people. This is never going to work if it's just me and some other dude like writing code.
Right,
So,
exactly.
Now in the beginning, they just threw that thing together and there was no planning. If you watch The Social Network, which, some of that's probably not based in fact, but, they got lucky in the sense that they, it sort of fell into their lap, but then once they saw the potential in it, so like, okay, we've got to take this seriously.
Right.
Let's create a business.
Absolutely.
So. Any final thoughts, Mike, on your dealing with uncertainty in small businesses?
Only that the only thing that is certain is uncertainty.
Yeah.
That's really it. The only thing that's certain is that you're going to deal with uncertainty.
As cliche as that's going to be, definitely the truth. That's the truth of anything. You're never going to be able to foresee every outcome. So, well, that's all we've got right there on that particular topic. So stay tuned as we discuss how to overcome being an unknown business. So one of the biggest hurdles that a new business has to overcome is being an unknown in the business community and to the consumer. That's, I think, probably one of the hardest things to kind of get a foothold in your community and with the people who you want to purchase your product or service, is trying to get your name out there and really push your business to the right audience. So let's get into the details of all of that, Mike. What are your initial thoughts?
So being unknown, you can see it. You can see it in our local community, especially. You talk to people like, oh, did you hear about this new business that was open? And of course, then you promptly forget. Like someone can mention it to you, someone can talk to you specifically about it, and you still might take weeks or months to actually go by and visit that place. There's one place in particular that I still have to get to in Nacogdoches, and my wife has been there a couple times, and it's a sandwich place near the college campus. I just don't ever go over there. Yeah. Right. But it is someone who she knows, who she's already made contact with, who might even benefit from just sitting down and having a conversation, and yet it's been weeks and I still haven't gone over there. Mm-hmm. So being unknown is a huge struggle for small businesses, because let's be honest, most small businesses are serving their local communities. They're not going out there and starting some sort of drop shipping service where they're trying to get people from all over the world or all over the U.S. to buy product online.
Their audience is obviously considerably smaller if it's not a nationwide thing.
It's going to be local and contained to a specific geographical area. Yeah. So
word of mouth is definitely still the cornerstone of any kind of business in terms of their advertising or marketing or getting their name out there is word of mouth. It's the old-fashioned. I think that'll be in existence from now until the end of civilization, because really that's the most personal way that your business can interact with the community is people giving hey, have you been to so-and-so? That right there is a stamp of approval by your peers. Hey, you should go see this place, or you should go check this place out.
Right. The fastest way to get me into a new restaurant is to tell me about how good their food is from someone I trust.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then when the experience matches what was said, you had my interest and now you have my attention.
Right. And then you're going to be a repeat customer.
Exactly. One of the First City Cafe, someone said, you have to go eat their tres leches cake. And I said, it can't be that good. This person's exaggerating. This person exaggerates all the time. But I went there and it was that good. And now I've gone and had that, and the variations they serve on it for the seasons, right? I've had that multiple times. And I've even gone so far as to drop in on a Tuesday night just to see if they were still open to get some, because it was dessert time. Mm-hmm. You know, the two people who talked to me about it, the first one who was a very exaggerating person, and somebody else who really prompted me to go. It was huge. It had a massive impact. So yes, absolutely, word of mouth, in-person networking is, for small businesses, is really the way to go. And it speaks back to the point from the last segment of in-person. In-person is so powerful. It can have both positive and negative impacts.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you've got somebody who comes in and says that everyone else is to blame for their problems, right? And suddenly the entire community is now against you, even though they're not trying to actively destroy you. They're also not going to lift a finger to help.
Right.
So keeping that positive impact rolling, participating in, here's just some ideas. Participating in local Chamber of Commerce events, networking with other business owners, going to just putting a booth up and being in person at shows. I mean, down here, both Lufkin and Nacogdoches have a rodeo every year, and so many people go to that, and right. That's your core customer in this area.
Yeah.
Everyone goes to rodeo.
Yeah.
So go there and do it. Every event put on by the community, like you said tonight, is the Christmas parade in Lufkin.
Yeah.
Business owners who show up to there and get involved in the parade, people are going to go, who's that?
Yeah.
Right? And it is its own form of advertising.
Yeah. I mean, that's why a lot of places do it. I mean, obviously you're going to have the children for the bands and the school floats and things like that, but a lot of local businesses will buy a float and represent their business that way. And it's, you think, well, that's a silly thing to do, but around here, that's kind of a big part of being a small business in the community is participating in these local events, So, you were talking about the First City Cafe. There's this, I don't like pie. I've really never been a big fan of pie, but there is this great little bakery in Palestine, Texas called Oxbow Bakery. And I kept hearing all these people say, oh my God, it's the best pie I've ever had. And I'm like, pie, whatever, I'm more of a cookie person. If I'm going to have a dessert, that's what I'm going to have. But I got this wild hair one day. I was like, you know what, kids, let's take a road trip and just do something different and be spontaneous. Let's drive to Palestine and check out this place everybody's been talking about. And I was blown away by not only the quality of the product they were serving, because like I said, I am not a lover of pie. And now I'm like, oh, I wish they weren't so far away. But their homey atmosphere and the friendliness of their staff, willing to ask questions and talk to you and just sit down even. Our waitress kind of came over and just sat with us for a bit and answered any of the questions that we had because we own a local business here in our community. And, that really made an impact on me as a consumer. Like they took the time, even though they were super busy, this place is crazy busy, to come over and talk to us. And really talk to any of the clientele in the little bakery because they have some seating right there in where they make everything. So for me, that really word of mouth. I had seen them on social media, but having other people, oh my gosh, have you been there? This great little hole in the wall place, that you wouldn't necessarily think. And they don't do a tremendous amount of advertising, but the experience when you go and then just tasting the product. Is how their business has grown like wildfire. And they've also been in, I think, Texas Country Reporter and some of those other, local Texas magazines.
Right. And you get in those magazines by doing those things, by doing that work.
Right.
Right. I mean, you mentioned social media. It's an important part. And what most people don't realize, though, is that it really is an extension of the word of mouth. There's a certain authenticity that comes with speaking to the people directly involved in the business. And in social media, your audience wants the same thing. Mm-hmm. They want to be talking to the people,
or they want to feel like they're involved in some way.
That's you don't get engagement unless somebody feels like they have the opportunity to be involved.
So I have a really great example for that from my own personal experience. We started Standpipe in conjunction with a couple of other people, and even before we ever opened our doors for business, I was like, how are we going to get people's attention? Because we had obviously a limited budget. We were trying to remodel the space that we were going to have the shop in, and we were trying to figure out our menu, and we had to buy all the things to, go. So like our advertising budget was almost nothing. So one of the things I started doing was, as a photographer, taking pictures of the process of the build out and the decorating and the painting and all of us baristas, making the recipes. And so I created a Facebook page 6 months before the place ever opened and started posting these pictures on Facebook. And, we got a following pretty quickly, and people were like, I'm so excited. I can't wait till it opens. And if you've been in Standpipe Coffee House, you'll know that the one wall is this old Coke mural that was on the end of the building next to us. And when they added on this portion, the wall was just there as part of the inside wall. And when we uncovered that kind of just sort of made a name, this old mural that had been painted with this old lead paint, and his was over almost 100 years old. It was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing. And so we took pictures of that and just every step along the way. And by the time we opened our doors for actual business, it seemed like we had, at least within a small network of people, had created such a buzz that when we opened, we were busy. It wasn't like we were just struggling and, whistling and kind of twiddling our thumbs waiting for people to walk in off the street. So that worked for our business. Granted, that was almost 10 years ago. Things are a little different now and may not work quite the same way. But I really utilized Facebook and the internet in those early days, taking pictures of every event we had and just day-to-day stuff, and constantly posting on social media to keep people's attention. Hey, look at that cool thing that they're doing downtown. Let's go this weekend. Right. And it was a lot of work. I'll tell you, it was pretty much a full-time job just doing that.
Yeah.
So it's not without its challenges, but it definitely helped. And my brother-in-law has a business called Furniture Fetish, and it's also downtown now. And when he took it over and bought it, he, it was a modest little income. And I kind of had the idea of, what if we took pictures of the inventory and put it on Facebook and the website every week and let people see what's new coming in? And that kind of changed everything for their sales. When people saw with their own eyes, oh, hey, they got this cool couch in, I'm going to go down there this week and check it out. And it made a big difference. People are very visually stimulated. And so the pictures, and that was my contribution as the photographer, posting pictures to get people's attention on our Facebook pages. And, then the websites kind of came after that, and Instagram. But, that made a huge difference in us going from obscurity to kind of a household name.
Right, so. Exactly. And the website is important too, because from my standpoint, when I try to systemize that in my brain, what I see there is that the website removed a barrier. Both the social media and the website removed a barrier for the customers.
Yeah.
Okay. Traditional brick and mortar businesses have a specific barrier to overcome, and that is the general consumer laziness. If somebody's already downtown, they'll walk into your store if it's convenient.
Yes.
Okay. However,
how do you get them down there if they're not downtown?
Going to just go downtown to go to your store.
Yeah.
Okay. And this has kind of been the role of the city and other areas to give people a reason to be in an area of commerce. Okay. But the website allows the business owner to take some control of that and remove that barrier. The furniture store is a great example. People can browse the inventory from the comfort of wherever they are, right? And if they see something they like, they can get down there. They can make the decision then to go down and look at that in person and do that. And that's been one of the big that was one of the big selling points of Amazon when it first started, right? Was browse books from the comfort of your own home without having to go somewhere.
Right.
It's the big reason why online shopping works. And what you're seeing is how to overcome being unknown. It's a way for you to provide a certain convenience to your clients, to your customers.
And they can casually interact with you that way.
Yeah, that gives you the experience of being there without having to be there.
Right.
So that kind of pulls us into this whole idea of all that networking. It really is advertising.
Yes.
Okay. It's more impersonal. It's more organic. Okay, but it is advertising. And what advertising really lets you do is to differentiate. You
really target your audience that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. You give people a reason to see you as the why they want to go there. The coffee shop is a great example. Okay. Why would people want to go to Standpipe versus Starbucks? Okay. This was a big question in starting that business.
Yeah.
Why would people want to come to a coffee shop downtown, right, when they can go to Starbucks?
And it has a drive-through.
They don't have to get out of their car.
Right.
Right? Well, what we realized early on was that people wanted, number one, there was an entire segment of the market of people who worked around the downtown area that didn't want to drive
all the way to Starbucks. Yeah.
It was a convenience factor for them to be able to stop in at Standpipe on their way to work.
Yes.
Walking through downtown. Okay. It's almost giving it this is a real city feel. This isn't just some Wild West looking, building facades down a street in the South somewhere. This is like a real city where you can actually purchase things and have commerce and live a life downtown.
Yes. Especially now.
So that was a differentiation, the locality. Another differentiation is atmosphere and experience. You get a different type of drink. You get a different type of experience. All these things were actually not just things that Standpipe did, but they built into the advertising as well. Yeah. To differentiate them.
Well, and two, it a lot of people who came into the coffee shop then and now have said, wow, the atmosphere here is just so, it makes me feel like I'm in New York City at some little, backstreet coffee shop. That's what they've expressed. Like, this is a unique place. Whereas, with Starbucks, and there's nothing wrong with Starbucks, it is a chain, and there's one practically on every corner in every city just about. And so there's not a lot of personality sometimes, or there's not a lot of personability in places like that. It's very corporate and very just come in, get your drink. Yeah, you can maybe sit down and read or whatever, but where our shop is a lot more like, hey, here's your living room, and chat with your friends and hang out, and right. It kind of created we've created a different atmosphere there, so that also kind of differentiated us from the other big coffee shop place in the area.
Right, and Standpipe provides a value to its customer that you might argue Starbucks provides the value, but you know what? I think the way that Standpipe provides value, the difference between the two is huge. And providing value, providing a recognized value to your customers is like one of the fastest ways to overcome being unknown.
Yes.
Okay. Because people will talk about it. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the experience.
You can talk about you can talk about your business all day long and nobody cares.
Yeah.
Right? But if other people besides you are talking about your business, there's so much more power in that.
Yeah.
You know, when in the last segment we talked about the Fredonia Hotel and about, you know, when it was purchased by another business owner in town. As a matter of fact, the person who purchased it was already pretty well known in town for restaurants. This was a different move for them. Okay, they owned restaurants, so they were in food services, but hospitality is a bit of a different animal.
Yeah.
Okay, there's certainly food service involved. The cafe that's there, the steakhouse that's there,
and the little bar,
and the bar.
Yeah.
Okay, so those areas were areas of comfort for the people who bought this, but the actual hotel piece, completely different scenario.
Yeah.
But even though the prices are higher, there's a certain value in the experience provided at the Fredonia Hotel that people are just clamoring for.
Well, it's a completely different atmosphere. You know, if you look at Nacogdoches, it's a historical town, and it has a lot of the chain hotels in and around the city, and it's got a lot of not Airbnbs, but probably some Airbnbs, but bed and breakfasts, and all of those have a different sort of feel to them, whereas the Fredonia was remodeled to be like a 1950s mod sort of design, which was there's no other place in town like it.
Right.
And they created a completely different atmosphere from all its competitors. You know, so it set itself apart in that way by having a different sort of just like a aesthetic. And then the food that their restaurants offer, the service and the amenities to their hotel were different. So, you know, it's created, like you said, it's creating that value, and also made me as a consumer go, oh, hey, I'm going to go, even though I live 20 minutes away, I'm going to go stay there for a night, you know, with my husband is a fun thing to do just because we've never been there, and they just renovated this place, and, you know, let's go check it out. And yeah, we live down the road, and it seems kind of silly to some people. Why would you stay in a hotel just 20 minutes away? But the atmosphere and the overall look of the place and the feel kind of compels you to go, I want to try that out and see what it's like.
Right.
So.
Absolutely.
So becoming known when you're starting out is really, there's so many things that you can do, and it takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of hurdles to have to jump. And this is where having someone kind of in your business help you with these kinds of things, promoting you on social media and your website and networking with people, can really, really make a difference in your longevity as a business. So that's kind of the long and the short of it on that particular topic. Stay tuned, and as we address the question, do you build it or do you buy it? We'll be back.
Do I really have to sing this again? The state we're in, I admit it bears repeating. Authorities exist, the men are overgrowing. Passive populists pretending like they never know.
All right, we're going to address the question, do you build it or do you buy it? Mike, what are we alluding to there?
Okay, so build versus buy. This is a question that comes up all the time in business in general. But when you're looking at something your business needs to do, whether that's become you need to do accounting. We talked about it in the last podcast about doing your accounting, whether you hire somebody or whether or not you get your own service or just use an Excel spreadsheet. You know, the build or buy question is something that you can sit down as a business and go, can I do this in a way that invest more of my time or someone's time that I delegate it to, or do I outsource this to another company, to somebody who's external from the business, and essentially buy that product or service to do that thing? So,
and why is that important? Why considering that question? Should you build it yourself or should you buy it? Why should small businesses kind of consider one or two of those options?
I think we have a tendency as business owners to try to do everything on our own, but sometimes the expense involved in doing it on our own, whether that be through our time or actual financial expenditures, is much higher than what somebody, even another local business, could do at charges as a service. So it's important because it helps. It really helps with the financial decisions in a business, and with understanding the importance of a business owner or other people's time in the business.
Right. Well, there's some factors I'm sure you would have to consider when you are weighing these two options. One of them would be something like efficiency. Is it efficient for me as a business owner to do this myself, or is it better for me to hire it out to a specialist? Like for me, for example, for a period of time, I was personally doing videos on my Instagram. And I learned the process. The first thing I did was I learned the process. Getting over my hesitation to turn a camera on myself, and going and recording myself in a 60-second long segment, and then just posting it to social media. That's the very basic process. And it takes time. That easy. It takes 60 seconds at that point. Well, but then I just post social media, and it's a very bare-looking video. So I learned about putting, some branding imaging on there that I'd seen other people do. And then I learned how to put captions on there, right? And the thing about captions is I don't have scripts. I don't generally work off of scripts. At best, I work off of notes. Yeah. And so the thing about captions is I started doing captions. Now my video time it went from taking 60 seconds to taking 20 to 30 minutes per video. And then posting all that to every different social media and coming up with copy. There's all these things to it. So I learned the whole process, and then I found other tools to help me do it faster. And most recently, I said, can I find a service that automates this? So my build or buy decision for doing these videos hasn't actually stopped me from doing the work, right? But it has been in consideration for a final process for more than 6 months. Yeah. And the result of my searching on this question of finding somebody who can just take my video, right, and automatically do everything I want to get done, was that it would cost me something along the lines of $500 a month. And as I considered that, I realized that if I actually delegated that to somebody else within the company, somebody else I brought on to do this specific thing, it would be the same amount. It would be the same amount of money, even though me doing it myself is significantly more when you take into account my time. Right. So efficiency is important, because efficiency is a matter of doing what needs to be done in a better way, so that it's faster and more beneficial to the company. Well, that kind of leads into the time it will take you to build something versus the time it takes you to implement it. So, that kind of goes hand in hand there, because time is really the biggest currency we have. It's the most valuable currency we have. What can you do with your time to maximize the use of your time, in an efficient way? And if it takes you a lot of time to build it, and to implement it, is it really worth it? Those kinds of things. Do you have any examples or details that you would like to give on that?
My thoughts on time to build versus time to implement is when you're building, you're kind of implementing as you go.
Well, that's true.
Implementation would be like if you bought it from somebody, but
And then you have to teach people how to use it.
Teach people how to use it. You have to put your processes in place. So there's not just a...
You're not getting out of time one way or the other.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. You're going to invest time in it. So it's important to consider that implementation time, the time it takes to actually get from I purchased this to, it's being used correctly and in place. That's an important factor to consider when you're making that buy decision. You're never going to get away from spending time on something. It's got to have your focus for a period of time. The question is, the question leaves the next piece is the cost of that, both the cost of a build versus the cost of buying and implementing. Is that higher or lower than the benefit it provides?
Yeah.
In some cases, cost versus benefit doesn't really answer the build or buy question.
Yeah.
In my video scenario, it's just as much to hire and train someone to make my videos locally as it is to do this other automation thing and pay some company out of probably California, and then set it up so that it can do it.
The benefit there is if you hire someone and train them, you're putting money back into our community versus some other community.
Correct. Which does make my decision a lot easier just because of how I personally feel.
Right.
There's a comic strip online called XKCD, and this particular comic strip is written by a guy who is a computer scientist and physicist. And so he does a lot of computer jokes. It's very popular in the software development community. But there's one particular one where he doesn't just do jokes. He actually provides some really helpful comics. And this is a one-panel comic where he has a chart, a table, showing how long it takes to automate something on the rows, with how long it takes to do that without automation on the columns, and shows you the amount of time saved so that you can determine in each of the cells, is it worth it to automate this process?
Right.
Right. And it's a really interesting analysis of, software developers have a tendency to automate everything simply because they love to automate things.
Right.
But sometimes that automation isn't actually worth it. It's a visual representation of the build versus buy scenario.
Yeah. Well, you would know more about that than I would. When you're considering this build versus buy question, you kind of have to take into account whether or not can your company do this well enough? What's the expertise level? If you're going to build it yourself, do you have the qualifications to do so? Because if you're not really good at accounting, maybe building an accounting software or whatever, using a spreadsheet,
just building a spreadsheet
may not really be efficient enough for you.
Yeah, it's not gonna. It may end up causing you more trouble than it's worth,
and
down the
costing
line.
you money later on.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to consider what your strengths are if you're going to build it, quote quote, build it yourself. Can you really do it, efficiently? I know that there's some weaknesses I have that I have no business, doing that particular part of a small business. So I think that's a question that a lot of small business owners have to kind of ask themselves. Is it really better for me to just buy an option rather than build it myself?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that it boils down to for a lot of people is, it's not a question of build or buy. It's a question of buy simply because I don't have the expertise to do it. And I've made the wrong decision there at some point in my personal life. I end up having to return and take a small hit on a tankless water heater. Simply because we bought it because it was, something we thought we were going to need to be replaced soon. And I'm like, I can do this. This isn't all that hard. Let's get some help with the gas line and we'll be fine. There was a lot more to it than I realized. Yeah. And so we ended up just going, you know what? No. A real plumber came in and told us, yeah, you're not going to be able to do this. You're going to have to redo all this stuff, and it's going to cost you a lot of money, and it's not going to be worth it.
So you thought you were going to save money, and instead it cost you more money.
It ended up costing me about $16 in finance charges because I was also lazy and didn't return the thing quick enough on the card. So it cost me money in finance charges, and it cost me time, because thankfully it was only my own time, and the plumber who was there had something else to do and didn't charge for the free advice he gave on the tankless water heater.
Well, that was nice of him. All right. Well, I think that about sums up this episode of the PaynePoints Podcast. I hope you enjoyed or learned some things that you didn't know before, or maybe had some insight on some stuff that you hadn't considered. So there you have it. I'd like to thank Mike for all of his input today. And you can join us on social media, Facebook and LinkedIn at PaynePoints, Instagram at Payne.points, and on Twitter at PointsPayne. If you have any questions or comments or topics you'd like to hear discussed on the next podcast, please contact us on any of our social media, or you can contact us through our website and send those in. And I guess we'll see you guys next week.
There you go.